Emma, it's absolutely fantastic to meet you. And we've had a few emails and conversations in the past, but it's finally great to get to do this podcast together. So would you mind starting off by actually telling us a little bit about what you do now, and just share with us what your business is, please?
Yeah, Richard, thanks for inviting me on. It's great, as I say, to finally be here after lots of different bookings and things. So I work in small business marketing. I specialise in small business marketing, service-based small businesses rather than consumer goods and products, because that's my background. And what I offer is a simplistic view of marketing for very busy business owners, probably businesses up to about 20 to 30 staff who don't really have an in-house marketing function.
Okay, great. Thanks. So, I'm going to really enjoy this podcast talking to you because marketing is a thing that fascinates me. And as you all know, it's one of the most important aspects of a business being successful is how it markets and reaches out to its clients. But before we get into that, would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and what you maybe did before you started your own business? And if you don't mind as well, would you share with everyone why you started a business? Because I think people will find that really interesting.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. So I've now worked in marketing, service-based marketing for over 35 years. I started in financial services way back in the day when interest rates were extremely high, 15-16%. So it's a very interesting time to be in that particular marketplace. And I had a slightly different route into marketing because I didn't do a degree. I was in the right place at the right time. I was offered a job with somebody I'd been doing some contract work for as a kind of admin assistant. She saw obviously some potential on the creativity and writing side, and the rest is potentially history. I've, as I say, always worked in service-based businesses. I stayed in that first job for about 8 years, kind of learned on the job, if you like, did some training as well, worked within facilities, worked within the print industry. But my most recent corporate experience, or my last corporate role, I left 11 years ago now, and I was there for 10 years, and that was a recruitment organisation. So quite an interesting take on services marketing, because it's actually about marketing people, individuals, which was quite a challenge. So that's kind of a snapshot of my background. Always worked in quite small marketing teams, so very hands-on with delivery as well as the management, and more recently the strategic side of things. So I do kind of give a real 360 view of marketing. It's not just the delivery, it's not just the strategy. And my reason for deciding to have my own agency, consultancy, whatever you want to call it, I'd got a little bit tired of the corporate world. It wasn't a great experience when I left it, if I'm perfectly honest. And although I went off travelling for a while, when I left my last role, I went and spent some time in New Zealand, which was fabulous. I started to do some freelance work while I was out there. And while I was out there, I was offered a freelance opportunity with my old boss, who'd also left the corporate world. And so we spent about 4 years working together, servicing recruitment and related HR organizations with our marketing skills. And then it was a natural progression. He wanted to go and work in-house again for me to come out on my own. So it was a light bulb moment. I must do it. All I knew was I didn't want to go back into working for someone else, as in one big corporate job where I was on a hamster wheel. So that's really it in a nutshell.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. That's really interesting. And so how long did you say you've been doing this now then, your own organisation?
My own organisation, about 6 to 7 years. If I'm honest, I freelancing to start with. The last 3 to 4 years, I've seen myself as a business owner, and that's quite a transition. And I retained a coach to help me make that transition from being a freelancer to actually running a business. And it's quite a different mindset. So it took me a while to get there with that one.
So what would you say the difference is then between being a freelancer and running your own business? Because there are some similarities, aren't there?
Yes, there are some similarities, but I think it's more about how you perceive yourself and when you're going out to talk to people. So networking is one of the ways that I actually generate new leads for my own business, along with other various marketing tools and tactics. But I found that I needed to be in that right mindset and take myself a bit more seriously. Not saying freelancers aren't serious and professional, because they are. I was one for many years. But it was a mindset change. That was the biggest thing, because you've got to wear so many hats as a business owner. So yeah, as a freelancer, I didn't have my own website. I didn't really do my own marketing. I got my marketing contracts from portals that you could advertise your services on. Whereas as a business owner, you're out there marketing your services. As I say, networking has become quite a key tool for me. So yeah, taking myself a bit more seriously as a marketer, offering my services to the world, really.
Okay, great. And then, so you say that you kind of specialize in service-led industries. Do you tend to work with established businesses? I think you alluded to the fact that up to about 25 to 30 people. So are you working with established businesses? And do you ever come across people who are starting business and wanting your help and support? How do you kind of, I suppose what I'm asking is, who's your kind of target market? Who have you identified that is, really in that sweet spot for what you offer, what you charge, and what they want from your services?
I would say the sweet spot is probably 5 to 10 employees. Marketing is relatively new concepts. They probably dabbled, as most people do, in the social media side of things. They may be a bit overwhelmed by where they really should be focusing their marketing spend or their marketing resource, if they've got somebody kind of, managing it or delivering it in-house. So that would probably be the sweet spot. I would happily work with people that are just starting out, if they've got funding to really invest in that kind of thing. What I do offer is some kind of group training sessions sometimes for those who perhaps are starting out but don't necessarily have a huge budget for their marketing, because it actually gets them on the right foot. They start off on the right foot rather than trying all these different things. So that's probably the sweet spot for me, is 5 to 10 employees.
Great, that's really interesting. Thanks. Couple of things you've mentioned, I'm really intrigued about, and I'd like to come back in a minute to kind of what those fundamentals might be from your perspective, for those people who are listening who might be starting businesses and interested in taking that leap into starting their own business. They might be quite interested to know what your take is on what some of those fundamentals might be to help them. But before I ask you that and we go into that detail, you mentioned that when you were transitioning, you worked with a business coach to help guide you around this, as you mentioned, this kind of mindset shift towards business owner. How did you find that experience, and why did you think that you needed a business coach, or how did that happen?
One of the things that I need to do, because marketing as a discipline evolves. When I started 35 years ago, there was no social media. There wasn't even email, if I remember rightly. A lot has changed, and it's a discipline that continues to evolve. We've got TikTok coming on board. That's a great forum for service-based businesses. Who even knew that was going to be the case? So I've got to keep up to speed with it. And I just started to read a lot about business coaching and mindset, and to be able to really go forward and develop your services often needed that shift. So part of my network was a lady who kind of specializes in where I was at a few years ago. And really worked with her for 9 months, and she really gave me a focus of, having business goals, having a business plan. As a freelancer, you don't necessarily focus on those topics because you're just working for 6 months for one client. You might be working ongoing for a number of clients, but you do the delivery and off you go. And there's not really a need, or there's not really a focus on where am I going to be in 5 years' time? Where am I going to be in 10 years' time? And I wanted to have that. I'd kind of decided, okay, if this is where I'm going to spend my time with my work hat on, I need to, have a think about this. I'm of a certain age where pension and retirement aren't that far away. So I needed to have a plan. And that's really what drove me to get a coach and choose the coach. And that's a really key thing that suited where I was at that time. I actually spoke to about 5 or 6 before I chose the one that kind of resonated with me.
Yeah, thank you. That's fascinating to listen to, because obviously one of the things we do at our organization is we coach and we support and we help people go through startups or expand and scale their business. So I was really interested to understand why you felt that was relevant. And it's interesting you say that, because this week I've been delivering some workshops on outstanding performance. And I think it's alluding to some of the points you're making around, we need to set goals and we want to be able to achieve goals. And sometimes it can be hard to understand, if we're going to set a goal that's going to push and expand our boundaries, how are we even going to go about making that happen? And so I find it really interesting to explore how people who are achieving outstanding success, especially in things like the sports world. I mean, if we look at some of the most successful sports where they're making ridiculous amounts of money, they've often got experts in all these different areas and categories around them, where you've got the psychologists, you've got the personal trainers, you've got the technical aspect of what they're doing, they've got the agents. Because there's so much money at play and success equals money, you tend to find that they get the coaching and the support that they need. And so I find it really interesting looking at this setting of goals, understanding the mindset that's needed to achieve success. And so it's fascinating to listen to how, with your coach, you were able to start to explore how our phrase that we use is create your future. Because I do believe that if you start to use goals and then you put a plan in place, you can start to move towards them. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's really interesting. So going back to the earlier point then, so from your perspective as an expert in marketing, I'm really pleased that you mentioned TikTok, because obviously that's huge at the moment. And I actually heard about a guy that was a concrete manufacturer, and he did something on TikTok. Someone saw him, clicked on his profile, contacted him, and he got a 7-figure contract. So yeah, I'm with you. TikTok is absolutely one of the places to be, because it can go so viral and it can reach out to so many people so quickly. I think there's talk that the algorithm hasn't quite been adapted like the Facebooks and Instagrams have over the time. So you could still got that opportunity to, have some good reach. So if there's people listening who are maybe wondering where to go with their marketing, maybe they've been trying little bits here, little bits there, or maybe they're starting a business. In your opinion, what maybe, 1 or 2 things would you advise someone to look at from a marketing perspective?
So the way I operate my business, I've recently kind of done a review of all my services to follow the path of how I can best help an audience, whether that is a startup or somebody slightly more developed within their business. The same principles apply, and the first step is always to look at their client base, or who their ideal client is. Now, a lot of people when I've run training sessions or presented, I always ask the question, who's your ideal client? Oh, well, it's anyone that needs HR, or anyone. Well, when you start to then try and create marketing messages to use on social media, to use in networking or whatever, how do you differentiate? Because, for example, marketing is a very crowded marketplace in terms of marketing services providers, such as myself. So how do I specify, make myself stand out, or offer something it's not different, but how do I position myself? So that's the first thing that I would say if somebody's going to invest in any time and effort with an external marketing resource. It's not about getting somebody to manage your social media for you or deliver it for you. It's not about somebody creating it for you. It's taking that very first step and identifying who your audience is and why they're your ideal audience. How can you best help them? Where do they show up? So I'm not really talking about the old, they call it client avatar or persona, where it's location, geography, that kind of thing. It's a little bit deeper than that. It's about how your service can actually help them get over some kind of pain point they may have. So it may be that they started to employ staff, so they know they've got to be compliant with HR and employment legislation. You can help them with that. You can provide something to them. This is just a very top level example. So it's really looking at that audience, understanding who it is. The next step after that is creating some finite messages that, no matter how you use them visually, in video, in imagery, in text, that underlying message is always there. And it's not a sales message, it's just about people start to be aware of your brand, or you, if you are your brand, of what you can offer and why you're different, or what makes them, or why they should come to you over someone else. So those are the fundamentals, really. And that's before you even pick up your device to start creating an Instagram account or start using it, because without that, you're almost just throwing mud at a wall and hoping some of it's going to stick, and it's not necessarily going to work. There's too much content out there these days, and there's too many service-based businesses. So I would say, by service-based, for me, it would generally be your HRs, your facilities, your legal, finance, those kinds of things. But I do also work with construction clients as well. So, but their message is going to be different. Why would they come to you over someone else? And that's really the cornerstone of starting your marketing.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And what you're saying there, for those that are listening, is exactly what I'm picking up from my experience. You've alluded to being, crowded and overcrowded space. Well, actually, in my opinion and from my work, every business today is a media business first, because there is so much noise. In fact, I heard a story about Budweiser say that they don't compete with other beer brands. They compete with anything that goes down your throat and that you drink. They're competing with water, Coca-Cola, lemonade. They're competing with everything. And so, I think, again, that's a great message for people to pick up from, what you're saying, and what I've learned as well is that we're media businesses first. And I think, you alluded to the fact that we need to understand as business owners exactly who it is we're trying to reach out to, but also the problem we're solving. Because if we can then add value to what they're actually trying to solve, we're then talking to them in their language rather than us just telling them the services we offer. So again, it's really, I think it's nice for us to both know that we're very much picking up similar messages around, what we need to be doing as business owners ourselves. In what we're going to do to succeed. I remember another interesting story. You can tell I was a teacher, can't you? I remember another interesting story about PayPal. I don't know if you remember this one, but when they started, I think with America and with Silicon Valley, it's such a unique place. It's not like any other place in the world for startups. And they used to have, and they still get, so much funding that comes in to fund ideas, that actually the funding of the idea, often getting so much funding up front, is not that easy to get, and it's very unusual. And PayPal had got that much money in the early days that they were actually paying people and buying clients. So they were paying for people to be a client. Because the problem they got at the time is they'd come up with this idea of a digital currency, but the technology hadn't evolved. They knew it was great for everyone. Like you said about that client you mentioned, that, well, I could market to everyone. Well, yeah, but how are you going to afford to market to everyone? And this is the problem that PayPal had at the time when they first started, is they knew it would benefit everybody, a digital cash system, but they didn't actually find what often is called an early adopter for a startup, someone that really needed that service because it solved the problem. And they came across eBay at the time, which was a very young company. And it was so young, actually. It was when you used to order off eBay, and when you ordered it, you'd then send a check. And then the check had arrived, they cashed the check and post the item. I don't even know how they managed to make that work. And then PayPal saw that, and they said to them, look, actually, we've got a system here for your power sellers where when something's ordered, we could do immediate payments, immediate transfers. And that actually was what fueled and actually exploded PayPal to become the business it became, because it had now had that niche audience that it could target into. And we know what happened to eBay, and we know what happened to PayPal. So just to kind of support what you're saying, that if you really don't know, you need to, as fast as possible, you need to really understand what you're offering, what problem it's solving, how you're putting that message out, and how can you reach that small audience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the next step on from that would actually then be coming up with some kind of I'm going to call it a lead magnet. Not everyone will be familiar with that, but basically some added value that you give away for free, which gets them to go to your website, sign up to something or whatever. Because one of the things I have learned in more recent times is that for small businesses especially, it's about building an email list so that you own the client or potential client data. You're not relying on social media to manage it for you, or any other kind of marketing that may collect information. You want to own those potential customers' names so that you can, contact them. So that would be the next step, is actually then creating some kind of unique, it might be an ebook, it might be a short webinar, and it all sounds a bit, oh god, that's way too scary and big, but actually that then it gives you something to market, gives you something to talk about, gets people interested. So that would probably be the next thing I would suggest, after people know who they want to talk to and what they want to say.
Do you know what? I'm so glad I'm listening to you and we're talking, and do you know what, audience, people who are watching and listening, I promise you, me and Emma have not had a conversation before this, but what I'm about to say next is, again, I wholeheartedly support what you're saying. And in fact, some studies that I saw have shown that if you can build your database, so as you start to engage with customers and you collect that information, the study that say if you market correctly using your lead magnets and your follow-ups with using your autoresponders, your emails, your email management system, all those things, if you can get your head around it, the figure that I saw is that each person in your email database can be worth up to £1 a month. So if you set yourself a 12-month target, and your target is to aim to get 20,000 emails into your email database, as long as they're people who are really interested and not just for the sake of it, then that can equal, if you've got someone like yourself providing the kind of advice that people need, that could equal £20,000 a month in revenue. So I find this fascinating. Like I said to you earlier, everyone's a media business today first, and then it's about the services you offer that solve problems second. So, for those people that are watching and listening, I hope that you've had some value in what we're talking about here, because we've got someone who's an expert marketer, and we've got someone who's growing a business here and coaching others and applying a lot of what you're saying. So I found it fascinating listening to you.
I think that just to finish off on that point, actually, and I'm not going to go into specifics as to which social media platform, but I'd started to use a new one to promote my own services and grow a following, and it got hacked. And as a consequence of being hacked, they kicked me out, and I was never able to get back in. So I'd grown maybe a following of about just shy of 1,000 followers, been quite engaged with them, lost them. Now, obviously, I was connected to a lot of them on other channels, and I think there is still a lot for small businesses. Social media is a very easy way to get your name out there, to get talking to people. It's fabulous. It's great. I'm not by any stretch being negative. I'm just saying it's not always a good idea to rely on it as always being available to you, because I'm not the only person that's had that experience. And when you've put your heart and soul into growing something, it can be a bit of a kick in the teeth for it to then be taken away from you, and it can be very quickly, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks for raising that. I actually heard a radio program, and they got guests on, and it was all about exactly what you're talking about. It was explaining about people can get hacked. So without mentioning the platform, then would you mind just saying what you learned from that? Because obviously, you're an expert marketer. You're advising people that social is a great way to reach out to people. So how have you got around that, and what have you learned from it?
That really the email list, or collating the data so that you have a list of people that you can communicate with that isn't held somewhere, that's not owned by you, is I won't fall into that trap again. So yes, I happily, merrily, and I am now back on that particular social channel with a new business account. No problem at all with that. It works. It's where my audience are. So I was quite happy after a period of time to go back on there, but I've translated my marketing into a slightly different format now, that it's about getting names that I then can communicate with outside of social media, because social media is only one of many, many marketing channels. There are many others that are good. Email, a lot of people think it's dead. It still gets the best returns for any spend of any channel. So
yeah, and actually for those listening that are maybe a little bit younger, you might not have heard the term guerrilla marketing, because guerrilla marketing is something that you and I will know a little bit about. So yeah, maybe they could Google it and they could have a look. So, well, look, Emma, it's been absolutely fascinating meeting you and talking to you, and I just want to thank you so much for taking your time today. I just want to ask you one last question, if it's okay, before we finish, which is, if you could go back to when you transitioned either into freelance or when you transitioned from freelance to that mindset shift to being a business owner and an empowered businesswoman, what would you say, what advice would you give yourself going back to kind of help you to kind of move towards your goals and to achieve the success for whatever success means to you? What advice would you give yourself?
good question, Richard. Good question. Definitely take the time to do that client work. I cannot emphasize how important and critical it is for the direction of wherever you're going to take your business. And the second one is actually take the time to kind of get those processes and things set up so that as you get busier, your invoicing is all managed. It's in a system. It's all those things that just sound scary and take time to do. I wish I'd set those up a lot earlier than I did, if I'm honest. But more than anything else, charge your worth. I'm not convinced that a lot of small business owners, in the service-based industry, are starting out. They may have come from a corporate world. This is all completely new to them. So I work with a number of HR consultants who are, they are their business. They've got years of experience, and that's worth value to whoever is going to purchase that service from them. And often they don't charge their worth.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Those 2 points are excellent. And, to go with the point that you make about really understanding and focusing on who you're going to be reaching out to, what I would say, if you are going to start a new business as well, aligned with that is whatever your business is, you need to get it out to market as fast as possible. It's called a minimum viable product for those that want the phrase, the technical term, but don't spend too long nurturing it and creating it and trying to make it look fancy. Yes, it needs to look good. You need good quality. But once you understand how you're going to make your money, aligned with understanding who you're reaching out to, you need to get on it quick, get feedback so that your business model can evolve and start to grow quite quickly in line with identifying who the right clients are. So yeah, and that point there that you've just made is just fantastic about worth. A quick last story then. Again, liking my stories today. You can tell I've been doing some workshops this week. So I know one guy that charged £195 for a day's work, and they got phenomenal knowledge and information, and they coached this person. And when they coached this person and they got to understand what skills and services they offered, they actually wanted to buy their services back. And when they asked them how much they charged £200 an hour.
Mm.
So, there's an example of, you've got one person valuing themselves at £200 a day, and you've got one person valuing themselves at £200 an hour. And what I'd say, actually, to link into what you said earlier about providing that lead magnet for free, so many people have got a lot of money. So many people have got a bit of money, and so many people have got no money. And I think if you start with a lead magnet, you can provide great value for nothing, and then just keep providing value as you go up the price point, because there are going to be some people that can afford a £20 ebook. There are going to be some people that can afford a £200 digital course that you've recorded. And there are going to be those that want to afford your £2,000 personal coaching program. So I totally, again, support what you're saying, that don't be afraid to value your services and try and link that kind of pathway of value, starting with the lead magnet, like you said.
No, I agree with everything you're saying, Richard, and it is about getting them onto that. And here's where I'm thinking business owner again, getting them onto that stepped process and up the value chain, putting my corporate head back on. They start off with a free lead magnet, and they can then choose to attend a webinar, or at the end of that there's an offer something else that they can purchase, or book some time with you at a fee. There's all sorts of things that can be done. So
yeah, and it's an exciting time. And just for those that are listening that think there's a lot to do and it's challenging, the metaphor I like to use is it can often feel like a wave is coming and overwhelming us with so much to do. And kind of what I'm saying to people from a mindset perspective is, what you've got to do is pick up a surfboard, which is working with people like you, people like me, turn around, face it and ride it, because there's so many opportunities today. And I think it's fair to say that you and I are not spring chickens anymore.
Oh, no.
But I think this is a great example for everyone watching and listening, that if we can adapt and use some project management skills, take a little bit of knowledge that we've got, and we can turn that into a side hustle or a startup or a way of earning money and having a happy life that's fulfilling, and we're in control of our destiny. And I tell you what, anyone else that's listening, you can do it as well.
Yeah, happy days. Agree with all of that. Very much so.
Brilliant. Well, so Emma, if anyone would like to get in touch with you, now we can see behind you. Could you just move slightly? There we go. Look, www.fg-marketing.com. So if anyone would like to chat with you about marketing, they've got your details there, and we'll be sharing this across social media. And it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. And we got there in the end. And I look forward to I tell you what would be nice, maybe we come back again in the future, and maybe we could see how you've been getting on. Maybe you could share a few more tips with us, maybe give people some examples of success you're having with clients. Maybe we could come back and do that in the future.
Absolute pleasure to do so. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for today. It's been great to chat to you. Thank you.
All right. Speak to you again.
Okay.
Bye.